doesn't the body need carbohydrates to survive?
Well, the short answer is no. So this was a misconception that I had, and is one of the reasons that I was a huge skeptic of the keto diet early on. So our body needs glucose, but our body doesn't need us to eat carbohydrates to get that glucose.
Okay. So how can we make our own glucose, right? That's the next logical question. So the body is very good at making a lot of its own stuff. So you may have heard of gluconeogenesis, so the generation of new glucose. There's also something called de novo lipogenesis, which is the formation of new fats. So de novo lipogenesis and gluconeogenesis. So gluconeogenesis is the body's way of breaking down, can be proteins, and forming glucose out of that. It can also come from the burning of fat, right? So fat is stored as a triglyceride, right? So there's a glycerol backbone and 3 fatty acids that make up a triglyceride. So when you're breaking that down to use as ketones and use as fat as part of this diet, that glycerol backbone goes back to the liver and becomes glucose, right? So that's the way that we can make glucose out of things that are, triglycerides that are already in our body, or, protein can get broken down and turned into glucose as well. So there's the mammalian part of our brain that really is glucose driven, and then in the men, testes are glucose driven. So
we have specific body parts that do need glucose as a fuel source and that don't want to use ketones.
Right. So
and
that's exactly why. So you would think if you're in ketosis and your blood sugar keeps dropping that it would go to 0, right?
Right.
But does it?
No. Even with multi-day fasts, Jeremy here has done a 7-day fast. He's done a 17.5-day fast. And his blood glucose didn't go to 0. So if it were true that we had to eat carbohydrates, then fasting
would kill
us. Yeah, and it doesn't. So it's important to take away from this is that our body can make its own glucose, and it will make it when it needs it. It's not going to create an excess supply, which is what happens when we eat carbs. Too many carbs. Any extra glucose in the bloodstream is then stored on the body as fat.
Right.
So that's really the difference between a high carbohydrate diet and eating a keto diet. We've changed our metabolic state, and now our body makes its own glucose instead of us eating carbohydrates for our body to break down directly into glucose.
So I didn't have the opportunity to measure my blood glucose on my 17-day fast, but I did during my 7-day fast. And the lowest my blood glucose ever got was 63. And a lot of people will start to feel that hypoglycemic, that extremely low blood sugar response. I think somewhere below 50 is where you really start to feel that. And your body will ramp up adrenaline and testosterone and things to get you moving, to get you to produce glucose to right the ship, right? To bring that glucose back up. It's going to make you hungry. It's going to make you jittery. So if your blood sugar does dip super low, your body has mechanisms in place to alert you to that, to get it up. But it is a dangerous state, hypoglycemia is, and that's why we always recommend anybody who is type 1 or type 2 diabetic to work with their doctor if they are interested in doing a ketogenic diet.
Yeah, if you have any disease or condition, you should be talking with your doctor about the ketogenic diet and getting approval first.